Title. Wife said, "Friends last forever, husbands don't." But then blamed me for not being there. When Emma first said it, the words slipped out so casually that I almost laughed, thinking she was teasing. Friends last forever, husbands don't. She was sitting on the patio with her wine glass, her girlfriends around her, laughter echoing in the air. They clinked glasses as if she had just made the cleverest toast of the evening. I forced a smile, pretending it didn't sting. But inside, something twisted. I couldn't tell if it was anger or disappointment, or maybe both. For years, I had given everything to build a life with her. Long hours at work, miss weekends, skip vacations, just so she could have comfort, stability, the kind of security she used to dream about when we were younger. And yet, in a single sentence, she made me feel like a placeholder. The worst part wasn't her words. It was the way her friends looked at me afterward, a mixture of pity and amusement, like I was a fool who hadn't realized his expiration date had already been set. I excused myself early that night, letting the laughter and chatter fade behind me as I went inside. Later, when Emma finally came to bed, she smelled of perfume and wine. She slid under the sheets as if nothing had happened. I turned toward her, desperate for some explanation, some apology, but before I could speak, she cut me off. "Don't start," she murmured, her voice thick with irritation. "Why would you say something like that?" I asked quietly. She sighed, rolling away from me. "It was a joke, Mark. You always take things too seriously. You weren't even part of the conversation." But I was part of it. I always was. Even when she pretended I wasn't. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering when I had stopped being her partner and started becoming the easy target for her clever lines. And somewhere in the silence, a darker question crept in. Maybe she really believed it. The following weeks only proved that her words hadn't been a slip. They were a reflection of how she truly saw me. Emma spent more and more time with her friends. Weekend brunches, late-night drives, random girls' trips that seemed to pop up every other month. And every time I asked why she never had time for us, she would wave me off with that same dismissive tone. "You don't get it, Mark. Friends are forever. Husbands, well, husbands come and go. That's just life." She said it like she was repeating some universal truth, as if my role in her life was no more permanent than a pair of shoes she'd eventually outgrow. I tried to laugh it off in front of her, but when I was alone, the words carved deeper into me. One Friday evening, after another long week at work, I came home to an empty house. Dinner table bare, lights off, no sign of her. I called, no answer. Hours later, she stumbled in, laughing, arm in arm with two of her friends. She barely noticed me standing in the living room. "Don't wait up next time," she giggled, brushing past me. I wanted to yell, to ask her if this was the life she wanted. But instead, I swallowed my anger, thinking maybe patience would win her back. Maybe if I kept showing up, she'd remember that I was the one who stood by her through everything. But when I finally confronted her on a quiet Sunday morning, her response left me speechless. I told her how I felt invisible, how it seemed like she chose everyone else over me. Her reply? "This is your fault, Mark. You're never there when I need you. You bury yourself in work, and then blame me for finding happiness elsewhere. Do you expect me to just sit around waiting for scraps of your time?" I stared at her, stunned. All the hours, the sacrifices, the things I thought I was doing for us. In her eyes, they became evidence against me. For the first time, I realized she wasn't just careless with her words. She had rewritten the story so completely that I was now the villain in it. Her accusation echoed in my head for days. I wanted to defend myself, to point out the endless nights I worked so she could have the life she wanted. The times I put her needs before mine. The vacations I skipped so our bills were paid. But I realized quickly that arguing with her was like trying to hold water in my hands. It would always slip through, leaving me empty. Emma, meanwhile, doubled down. To neighbors and mutual friends, she painted herself as the neglected wife. "Mark is never around," she'd sigh, conveniently ignoring the fact that she rarely gave me space in her life to begin with. The final straw came one evening when she was chatting with our neighbor, Sarah, across the fence. Emma laughed and said loudly, "Well, you know what they say, friends last forever, husbands don't." She expected Sarah to chuckle, to validate her careless cruelty. But Sarah didn't laugh. She turned, fixed Emma with a steady gaze, and said, "Maybe husbands don't last when wives stop treating them like they matter." The silence that followed was heavier than any argument we'd ever had. Emma froze, her confident smirk faltering. For the first time, someone had called her out. Not me, not in private, but in front of another person. That night, she tried to twist it again. She claimed Sarah didn't understand, that she only said those things because I wasn't giving her enough. But something inside me had shifted. I no longer saw myself as the man failing his wife. I saw her as the woman who had decided my loyalty was something she could mock, test, and blame whenever it suited her. I stopped chasing her after that. No more waiting up at night. No more swallowing my pain while she laughed with friends. If she wanted to live in a world where friends last forever, and husbands were disposable, then she could go ahead and see what life looked like without the husband who had quietly carried the weight of her forever. And as she stood there, replaying Sarah's words in her mind, I knew, this time, the blame wouldn't fall on me.